I want to be very clear about something before this story starts. Nathaniel Carroll never did anything I could take to HR. He never raised his voice. He never missed a deadline. He never sent a single email that crossed a line. He never did one thing that was technically, provably, documentably wrong. And I went home some nights genuinely questioning whether I was good at my job. That is the specific, particular, carefully engineered power of that kind of person. And if you have ever worked with someone like this, you already know exactly what I mean. And if you do not know what I mean yet, stay with me. Because by the end of this, you will be able to identify one within 30 seconds of meeting them. My name is Daniel Brooks. This is 6 months of my life. And this, right here, is how I survived it. It started on a Monday in January. Nathaniel Carroll, Nate, as he introduced himself, though something about him was always more Nathaniel than Nate, joined our team as a lateral hire. Same level as me, different background, brought in to co-lead a major 6-month project alongside me. First impression? Fine, quiet, professional, thorough. He wore a fully buttoned Oxford shirt on a business casual Friday, and I registered it and moved on. People have different relationships with dress codes. That is not a crime. The first week passed without incident. Week 2, the first flag. I had already sent a project update to the team, handled, communicated, done. Nate sent a follow-up email to the same thread, seeing Jessica Miller, our boss, with a slightly reformatted version of the same information I had already shared. The email was professional, informative, completely unnecessary, but there was nothing wrong with it. I noticed. I filed it away. I said nothing. Mark, who sits close enough to see most of what happens on our team, pushed his glasses up his nose and said nothing either. But I saw him look at that email chain for slightly longer than it required. Week 3, team meeting. I had been planning to take the lead on a specific section of the project. I had mentioned it the previous week. It was informally understood. In the meeting, Nate said, calmly, helpfully, I can take that on if Daniel has a lot on his plate. I did not have a lot on my plate. He knew I did not have a lot on my plate. The room heard helpfulness. I heard something else entirely. Week 4. My carefully prepared project framework gets quietly refined by Nate before the team presentation. The refinements are minor. The fact that he made them without asking is not minor. It is never the thing itself with someone like Nate. It is always the fact of the thing. By the end of month 1, I had a feeling I could not fully articulate. Something was happening. I did not have the evidence yet to give a name. But something in me had quietly started paying attention in a way it had not been paying attention before. If you're watching this and nodding slowly right now, if something about this first month is landing a little too close to your current situation, drop a comment below and tell me what month you are in. I want to know. And subscribe if you have not already, because this story is just getting started, and I promise you, it gets significantly worse before it gets better. Months 2 through 4 were in education in a very specific kind of patience. I started cataloging the pattern, not formally, just mentally. The unnecessary CCs that kept Jessica informed of things I had already informed Jessica of. The quiet volunteering for work that was already spoken for. That just wanted to make sure we're aligned emails, which, translated into plain language, mean I am not confident Daniel is aligned, and I want our boss to know that I noticed. And the thing that took the longest to name, the way Nate spoke in meetings. Always just after me. Always building on my point in a way that subtly repositioned it as his point. By the time he finished, the idea had somehow migrated from my side of the table to his side of the table, and everyone had watched it happen, and nobody had said anything because it had happened too smoothly to catch. Month 2 brought the first real flashpoint. I presented a solution I had spent 2 weeks developing. Nate, who had seen none of the development, none of the thinking, none of the process, asked 3 rapid technical questions in sequence. Not aggressive, just precise. The kind of questions designed to make something sound less fully formed than it actually is. Jessica looked at me for answers. I had every single answer. I gave every single answer clearly and completely. But the questions had already done their work on the room. I went home that evening and drafted an email I did not send. The draft was thorough. It was specific. It addressed everything. It was the most precisely articulate professional document I have ever written in my life, and it could not be sent to any human being on this planet. I deleted it at 11 p.m. and went to bed. Month 3, the CC escalation. Nate began looping me into email threads I had not previously been part of, always with a note. Looping in Daniel for visibility. The emails always positioned Nate one step ahead of wherever I currently was. The visibility was not for my benefit. We both understood this. The acknowledgement of that understanding lived entirely in the subtext of every interaction we had and was never spoken aloud by either of us. The young woman on our team caught me in the kitchen in month 3 and said, carefully and quietly, "I see what's happening over there." She did not elaborate. She did not need to. Those 6 words did more for my sanity that month than anything else. Month 4. Milestone review with Jessica and senior stakeholders. Both Nate and I present. The work at this point is genuinely collaborative. We both contributed meaningfully. The project requires both of us. The output reflects both of our efforts honestly. In Nate's section of the presentation, the pronouns were interesting. I developed, I identified, I restructured. I sat beside him and counted the pronouns silently. Said nothing. Smiled where the room expected a smile. Answered questions when they were directed to me. Walked out of that meeting with my professionalism completely intact and my jaw approximately 30% tighter than when I walked in. Mark caught me in the hallway afterward and said, in the careful, measured way that Mark delivers observations, "Nate is very thorough." The pause before thorough did considerable work. I nodded. We moved on. Sometimes that is the entire conversation that needs to happen. Month 5. The project entered its most critical phase. The work was real, the stakes were high, and I had been operating at a careful, sustained, deliberate professionalism for 4 consecutive months. That is an exhausting thing to maintain, and most people do not fully appreciate how much energy it costs to consistently choose the measured response when the unmeasured one is sitting right there available and waiting. Late Friday afternoon, I sent a critical deliverable to the team. 3 days of focused work, clearly structured, thoroughly argued. I knew it was strong work. I submitted it with the quiet confidence of someone who had done the thing properly. Nate responded in 4 minutes. He always responded in 4 minutes. I do not know when this man slept. I do not know if this man slept. The 4-minute response was its own kind of message, and we had all received it enough times to understand what it was communicating. The email was titled "Some Thoughts for Consideration." 6 paragraphs. It restructured my entire approach. It reframed the stated objectives. It was CC to Jessica Miller. It was completely, flawlessly, unarguably professional. It was the single most infuriating document I have received in my professional career up to and including this moment today. I stared at it for 11 minutes. I drafted a response. It was not suitable for a professional environment. I deleted it without finishing it. I drafted a second response. More controlled. Still not right. Deleted that one too. I closed my laptop, and I sat in the quiet of my office for a while and had a very honest conversation with myself. Not about Nate, but about me. About who I wanted to be in this situation. Not who I wanted to appear to be. Who I actually wanted to be. Because those are 2 very different conversations, and only one of them matters when you're sitting 11 minutes and is staring at an email titled "Some Thoughts for Consideration." The next morning, I came in early and sent my response. Measured, clear, fully professional. It addressed every point Nate had raised, reaffirmed my original approach with detailed supporting rationale, and was CC to Jessica, because if this is the language we are speaking now, then I'm going to speak it fluently. Jessica responded to both of us. Good discussion. Let's align on Wednesday. The Wednesday alignment meeting was 40 minutes long. It was the most precisely professional 40 minutes of my career. Neither Nate nor I said a single word that was not completely appropriate. Both of us said every word with complete intention. Jessica sat at the head of the table and absorbed everything and gave nothing back in her expression that either of us could use. I walked out of that meeting with my project approach intact, my professionalism untouched, and a clearer sense of myself than I had carried into it. That Friday night, I called my friend Marcus and said every single word I had not been able to say at work for 5 months. He listened without interrupting. He said, "I hear you, man." That was exactly enough. Somewhere between month 5 and month 6, I made a shift. I stopped tracking the CCs. I stopped cataloging the pronouns. I stopped drafting emails I was never going to send, and I stopped spending energy in the gap between what Nate was doing and what I wished he would do instead. That gap was not going to close. I had spent 5 months confirming that. I made a decision to redirect every single unit of that energy back into the actual work. I became more proactive about visibility, not in Nate's way, but in my own way. I sent project updates before there was a reason to send a follow-up. I documented my contributions as standard practice rather than as a defensive measure. I communicated wins to Jessica directly in my own voice, without the scaffolding of a CC chain built around them. I stopped reacting and started leading. Quietly, consistently, without announcing that I was doing it. The young woman on the team stopped me near the end of month 5 in the hallway and said, "You're handling this well." From someone who had observed the entire 6 months from close range and said only what was necessary. That sentence carried genuine weight. I thanked her and meant it completely. Mark stopped by my desk and said, "You seem like you've figured something out." Half observation, half question. I told him I was just focusing on the work. He nodded slowly behind his rectangular silver glasses as if I had said something worth writing down. Maybe I had. Month 6, the final stretch. The project concluded on a Thursday afternoon with a final presentation to Jessica and 2 senior stakeholders. The presentation went well. Genuinely, measurably, undeniably well. Both Nate and I presented. The work we had produced together over 6 months, despite everything, because of everything, around everything, was strong work. That was the honest truth of it, and I was not going to diminish it even in the privacy of my own thoughts. Jessica's feedback was specific and direct. She referenced my contributions by name once, connected a particular piece of strategic thinking to me specifically in front of the room without being prompted to do so. Just once. But from Jessica Miller, once is a paragraph. After the presentation, in the corridor outside the conference room, Nate extended his hand. "Good work on this," he said. His expression was professional and unreadable. Whatever the last 6 months had been for him, whatever he thought or felt about any of it, was not visible on his face in that hallway. He was composed. He was always composed. I took his hand, shook it firmly. "You too," I said. I meant approximately 40% of it. I delivered 100% of it. Sometimes that is what professionalism actually is, not the feeling but the choice. Nate moved to a different team the following week. A restructuring meant our professional paths diverged naturally and completely. I did not celebrate. I did not mark the occasion in any particular way. On his last day, I sat at my desk and took one long, quiet breath and went back to my work. Mark stopped by later that afternoon and said something kind and supportive that landed at about 65% of its intended target. I was grateful for every single percentage point of it. Here is what 6 months with Nathaniel Carroll taught me. You cannot out-Nate a Nate. You cannot send more emails or volunteer harder or build a bigger CC chain or count enough pronouns in enough meetings to change what that kind of person is doing. Trying to match that energy does not beat it. It just makes you a less effective version of yourself while you're doing it. The only move that actually works is to become so genuinely, consistently, undeniably good at what you do that the performance surrounding your work becomes irrelevant. Not loudly, not reactively, just steadily, day after day, until the work itself is speaking clearly enough that it does not need a translator. Your name gets said once in the right room at the right moment, and you understand that the 30 days before it, the quiet shift, the redirected energy, the daily choice to lead instead of react, that is what put your name in that sentence. Nathaniel Carroll never did anything I could take to HR. But I went into those 6 months as one version of a professional, and I came out the other side as a sharper, more strategic, more self-aware one. I did not plan for that outcome. I would not have chosen it if given the option, but I walked away with something real, and I will take it. If this story landed, if you have ever had to professionally survive something that nobody else could see from the outside, share this video with someone who is in the middle of it right now. They need to hear that the move is not to fight it. The move is to outlast it. And subscribe if you're not already here, because Daniel Brooks is not done surviving corporate America, and honestly, neither are you.